Boa tarde a todos. Good afternoon, everybody. We'll get started here so we can stay on track. I want to set the stage for our next conversation with a little bit more of a somber tone, but also a hopeful tone, because we're talking about aviation safety. This is a topic that's a very serious one, because we continue to see aviation accidents happening not only in the United States but around the world, Brazil. And it reminds me of something that was said back in the early 1930s, almost 100 years ago. It was a quote by Captain Alfred Gilmer Lamplugh from the British Aviation Insurance Group, and this is one of the most famous aviation phrases. See if you recognize this. Aviation in itself is not inherently dangerous, but to an even greater degree than the sea, it is terribly unforgiving of any carelessness, incapacity, or neglect. This was almost 100 years ago that aviation was just getting started at that time. In the early 1900s were the first flights. Santos Dumont, according to many, flew the first aircraft, then the Wright brothers. But aviation had only existed for 30 years when that British underwriter said that, and that remains today one of the most famous aviation sayings that there are, phrases that there are. And it's a reminder to us. If we have some slides there, Oscar, if you can put those up. I'm just going to start quick with a couple of slides. You might have seen here in the last few days, an entire family was wiped out, celebrating the birthday of one of their children. This is the human cost of accidents and safety is immeasurable. The financial cost we can replace. Machines can be replaced. But we're talking about entire family was wiped out. The Hudson crash that happened just a month or two ago. An entire Olympic team of skaters was wiped out, 12, 13, 14 years old. You can't be human if you don't recognize the human cost of what we're talking about today. So I want to bring that to the table and just have us think about this. We can't examine safety in a purely clinical way, because we're talking about human beings who will never be with us again. Here in Brazil, there was a very famous crash recently of Luiz Cláudio Galeazzi, who was flying an aircraft. He had just departed Gramado. It wiped out his entire family. So that's the backdrop as we come to this topic of safety and just how serious it is. There's so many aspects to aviation, but safety is really fundamental to it all. If you don't have safety, you've got nothing. Safety has to be fundamental. It has to be at the very foundation of what we do and how we do it. So as I talk to these two very capable gentlemen, Marco Santin from ANAC, who's a PhD, who's the head of the division at ANAC for airworthiness. Lincoln Gomez is an attorney from Aruba. These gentlemen grapple with this issue of safety. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit today, and I ask you to listen in, because we're going to have a conversation and you listen in. And please also submit your questions via Slido, and be sure to participate that way. So without further ado, we'll start this conversation. Feel free to look on the website for CJI São Paulo about their backgrounds, but without further ado, I wanted to introduce them here, and we'll get started. Gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We'll start with you, Marco. Let's talk about safety. What is safety? Is it a philosophy? Is it a checklist? Is it an add-on? How important is safety in your mind to an aviation operation?
Yeah, okay, Dave. So, good afternoon to everybody, and it's first of all, I'd like to thank CGF for inviting us, for inviting ANAC to be here and speaking about this matter that is actually what is the real motivation for the existence of ANAC, right? For the agency to exist. So I think you reasoned very well when you talked about the lives that matter when we talk about safety. Lives are not only lives, right? We always try to think that it will be my mother inside of the aircraft, it will be my friend. So it's someone that it cannot be replaced, right? So if from the point of view of the government, many times we see, it's 10 people. When you talk about numbers, I think we are thinking wrong, right? So it's about a person. It's about a person that matters and it cannot be replaced. But I think that safety, the challenge of safety is that it's something invisible, right? So if you're in front of a lion, safety is first for you. But if you're in front of a lion, it means that it's too late. So safety is about thinking earlier on what you must do in order not to get to that situation that you should avoid, right? And so when people talk to me and say, "Oh, safety," the safety levels, the accident rates in aviations are 10 to minus 5, 10 to minus 6, 10 to minus 7. For me, those numbers actually, it's very rare. There's no difference for me, right? So if you bet in the lottery, or you win or not. So it's difficult to say to talk about probabilities. Mathematically, we understand that's different, but human beings are not meant to understand these very low numbers, right? So if we try to put safety as numbers in our lives, we actually will miss it. We will not understand that. So for me, why is this phrase so important, safety first, is because it's not first normally in our lives. So it's like a mantra. And ANAC will not be with the owners when they depart, right? So it's something that everyone must try to find the correct psychological mechanisms inside their own minds to put in those situations where safety is important, or in those decisions where safety is important, to put safety first.
Lincoln, we know that an aviation accident it's a sequence of events, right? It's like a links in a chain. There's no one factor that causes an aviation accident. It's a series of things. How important is it the leadership of the aircraft owner when it comes to establishing that culture of safety in order to prevent that chain from getting started? How important is the owner's attitude or direction or leadership when it comes to aviation safety? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Sou Dr. Lincoln Gomes, avocado especializado em aviação, vengo de Aruba. É prazer estar com vocês hoje. Safety is very important. It's not just like a line that we draw in the sand. It's a line. You have the owner on one side, who has the money, who is successful, who wants to use his plane, who wants to brag about his plane, and then you have the operator on the other side, who has to maintain operational control, who has to follow all the safety procedures, and who has to make sure that everybody in and around that plane is safe. But sometimes when we see that there's a tension, that perhaps it happens that only the operator is concerned about safety. But it's not the operator who has to be concerned about safety. Everybody in that chain, including the ownership, has to be concerned about safety. So it really, in my opinion, and from seeing, too many accidents, because one accident could be already too many, where there is owner involvement that should not have been there, it has to be a flow. So the owner has to own the safety. He has to own the responsibility, just like he owns the plane. And from a leadership perspective, that is, I think, even key, because sometimes it's the operator that has to keep the ownership and the leadership accountable. But there may be at times where it could ought be around. So your investment, and for the bankers that are in the room, the investment of that value of that plane, the weakest link is the safety. Because that's where the weakest link breaks, and that's where the value of your aircraft goes. And that's why it's so important, I believe, for owners to be involved, and also think the jobs for operators, but I also think lawyers and even the financiers, to educate the owners where too often I've seen things gone wrong, and we've shared some thoughts about it. I can share some later or whenever you feel like. Yeah.
Okay. Marco, what are some things that ANAC is doing to promote safety and to really help make that a part of the culture? We know in the United States, for example, the NTSB has made almost 5,000 recommendations to the FAA. Most of them are not being adopted. And I think people would be shocked by that. What is ANAC doing, and how are they really trying to change this tide of accidents that keep happening to brand new airplanes?
Yes, so our job is safety. So we are every day we have more than 1,000 people working to find ways to improve safety, right? So if you maybe you'll be shocked also to know that even CENIPA has a lot of recommendations for ANAC that were not complied with. And that's, I must explain that CENIPA and ANAC think in different ways, actually. So we, for example, if CENIPA finds a problem, it makes a recommendation to ANAC, but actually ANAC has to understand the broader picture. So we must understand how the market is operating, what are the other barriers. So we go further than CENIPA when doing these investigations. So we learn from CENIPA, but we have the decision, the power to take the decision. So FAA is actually the same. But actually we can do, we learn from the accidents as well. And we apply that on our new regulations. So one thing, for example, that's very important in aviation is communication, right? So two companies may be competitors, but with regards to safety, those companies must be collaborators, right? So, and also, and we know that the authority has a role in the system that normally the regulated people don't like, because they don't like fines, right? But actually, we try. This is something that ANAC we are trying to do. We are trying to approach to the market, to the users, and have a better communication. So we propose a lot of mechanisms in order to promote this communication. So the first of them is a portal in the internet for the people to cooperate with safety by giving inputs on safety reports, on safety occurrences. And we have a very low number of reports on safety in Brazil, and that's something that we must change. This culture of not reporting in Brazil is dangerous. We have to change that. We have to, and in order to change that, ANAC issued a series of rules stating that we won't punish the person that is giving information. This is part of the safety culture and must be incentivized by ANAC. So if you notice that you are doing something wrong, you can tell ANAC that you're doing that, and you will be protected by ANAC regulation and will not be punished by that information that you give to ANAC. And today we have a publication in our federal register, right, the Diário Oficial da União, that is the parameters that ANAC will use in order to evaluate when we find a non-compliance from the regulated person. So if we actually, we call this the responsive regulation. And in terms of the responsive regulation, we want to separate the regulated people that are collaborators, that are willing to promote safety together with ANAC, and those that are violators. So, and today we publish this criteria that ANAC will use to separate so if you, for example, have an SMS, for example, we understand that you are trying to find the problems and are trying to help ANAC with this, finding the safety problems, risks, right? For example, if you find your own mistakes and tell ANAC, you'll be put in the collaborator side of the issue. And if you are not, if you're on the other side, if ANAC finds something about you, you'll go directly to a fine. Okay. Right.
Understand. Lincoln, help us understand a little bit from your standpoint, as you know, on the legal side of things. Does SMS matter? Is BAO? How important is it to have a formal safety program to mitigate these risks and try to catch them before they become issues? Talk to us a little bit about the role of SMS.
Yes. From the regulatory perspective, we do quite a bit of work with the Civil Aviation Authority of Aruba. We have a number of AOC operators that are operating in different parts of the world. And from there, it's just I think the Civil Aviation Authority has developed a culture of safety, of moving along, of making sure, and also even in the AOC requirements, list and require that the operators have and must maintain all these systems in place and all times. And there's also very strict when you're presenting your AOC application. If the DCA does not see that you're separating these roles and that you don't have these systems in place, they will tell you up front, we will reject your application. We will not tolerate it. It has to be done, by the books, and by the systems that have been implemented. Sometimes you'll see an operator say, yes, but I don't want to use that system. It's like, well, we all want to use that system, so you're going to have to use that, and that's probably the way you look at it too. We have to use that system so we can be safe, be responsible flying, and also that from a legal perspective that you are checking all the boxes, the legal check boxes, to make sure that you are compliant, also to avoid liabilities. But there, the Aviation Authority plays a very important role in defining and being the leader of that.
Okay. This is your chance, folks. If you want to submit a question or two, we've got about 6 minutes left here, so feel free to jump on Slido there and submit your questions. Marco, tell us a little bit about ICAO. Like, what is ICAO's role in safety versus ANAC, which is local, or FAA, which is local or in the U.S. but in registered aircraft? What is the role of an organization like ICAO?
Yes, so actually, I could say that ICAO has several roles, different roles, important roles, and one of them, I think, is the harmonization, mainly for the countries that are considered to be left behind, right? So ICAO is trying to put these countries that have lower level of safeties in their countries to a higher level and to promote a high level of safety all around the world. So ICAO learn from the countries that have high level of safety and try to bring that knowledge to the countries that are missing that knowledge. This is one of the important aspects of ICAO. And also, we in ICAO now we are participating in a moment that's very important, right, regarding a new type of aviation, this AEM, the Advanced Air Mobility. In this new kind of aviation, every country are running to define their own rules. So in this case, ICAO will be very important to bring the information that the different states are developing and put together to help the whole world to understand where to go regarding regulations. This is another aspect. And also, ICAO, it's an obvious conclusion, but if you see that the external rate is constant, but the number of flights is increasing, so you'll see more and more, mathematically, you conclude that you have more and more accidents happening. So the people will see an accident per week, then we'll see an accident per day. So, and then the feeling of risk of the society will increase a lot, and then that can jeopardize the evolution of the aviation market, right? So it's very important to get lower and lower accident rates, and that's what ICAO has been working and finding other ways to get to these scenarios, right, for lower and lower accident rates.
Lincoln, is zero accidents realistic?
I wish, but I think the reality tells us otherwise. There are mechanical failures. I mean, those are bound to happen. The people that know a lot more than me in this room will attest to that. But there's also the human failure. And you also have failure in command, where in terms of where ownership and leadership may try to step in and overrule the operator or overrule the pilot, fly a certain way. No, we shouldn't fly anyway. I'm in a hurry, I want to get home. Don't do this, don't do that. I think that's where we see a lot of what I call then the command failure versus mechanical failures.
One of the questions we have here is that aviation accidents seem to be increasing. Does that have to do with the supply chain, or is there more underlying issues that remain, like this issue of command from the ownership and leadership from the owners of the aircraft? What kind of a role does supply chain play in disruptions in accidents, if at all?
I would see those end up more in the mechanical failure sphere, where somebody's trying to stretch that metal because of a possible supply chain issue. But we don't have enough data yet on these recent events to see where is this coming from. So for now it might be the human or perhaps even the command failure.
Okay. Marco, as we wrap up here, what's one thing that you could tell a Brazilian owner of an aircraft that they could do to mitigate risk and maybe not eliminate, as Lincoln said, perhaps it's impossible to eliminate risk in this fallen world of ours, but what can they do to reduce the risk? Is it more training? Is it buying a new airplane? Is it more equipment? Is it culture? What's one thing you would tell an owner that they could do today?
Yes, well, I think as an ANAC representative, I should say that you must comply with the rules, right? So that's the basics. But actually, I think that if I should say something, I know the reality is not as perfect as I wish. But I think you must think earlier on safety, right? And respect the professionals, the experts that were trained to provide safety to your operation. They spend a lot of years training for that, so respect them, listen to what they have to say, and you'll have a safe operation.
Good. Lincoln, from your standpoint, I mean, you see all sorts of things from your standpoint. Kind of what jumps out at you? What's one thing that if you could tell the Brazilian owner or the Brazilian operator or anybody for that matter, what should they do to mitigate risk in an aviation operation?
You know, I think, for one, if your ego as the owner or as the leader is heavier than your aircraft because you want to call the shots instead of the professionals that are mentioned, then you're not fit to fly, and you shouldn't have everybody flying with you. I mean, so it really begins there. You know, respect the professionals, let them do their job, and stay out of the cockpit to avoid any.
So a lot of times we talk about the crew not being fit to fly, but there may be a time where the CEO may not be fit to fly if he's going to interfere with the operation.
Yes, and there's examples. One quick example I can share. There was a time this happens in Portugal, in which an owner in a very nice jet, the Gulfstream, didn't like the way the pilot landed the plane, although he was doing everything by the book. But he wanted to hover longer over the strip, so that when he lands, his boomsy felt less impact. And that was causing a safety issue, and at that time, because of the risks. And that little incident, caused the DCA to ground the plane, start an investigation, question the pilots. He couldn't fly for a couple of days, the owner couldn't fly for a couple of days just because of that extra soft landing that he wanted. And that's where you start with the extra soft landing. And then, you know, fly when you're not supposed to fly, and then it just gets out of hand.
Okay. Well, I know we could talk about this for many more hours. Our time is up, but gentlemen, Marco, Lincoln, thank you so much. Your experience is evident, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And coffee is outside.